So next is aerobic respiration. So before that, we know that the glycolysis is the common step for aerobic and anaerobic respiration. So in the glycolysis, what happens? Glucose is transformed into glucose 3-phosphate, phosphoglycerate, and phosphoenol. End product of the glycolysis is 2 molecules of pyruvic acid. So this pyruvic acid enters. What happens? If it is oxygen is available, it undergo the aerobic respiration. If oxygen is not available, in the case of yeast or bacteria, what happens? It is undergoing, it is changes into alcohol. It is going to changes into alcohol. Otherwise, it is going to changes into the pyruvic acid. If it is pyruvic acid changes into lactic acid. Otherwise, it is going to produce the alcohol, ethanol. It is going to produce. So this pyruvic acid in the absence of oxygen. So anaerobic respiration, what is the anaerobic respiration? In the absence of oxygen. So how the bacteria is going to produce their ATPs due to lack of in absence of oxygen. So in these two steps are happen. If the pyruvic acid, when pyruvic acid, this is glycolysis and pyruvic acid. So pyruvic acid, when it enters into the, when it is forms the glyceraldehyde, it is two-stepped process. So it forms the, in the presence of pyruvate decarboxylase. The enzyme is pyruvate. So it is 3-carbon compound. So it forms the, by losing 1 carbon dioxide. This pyruvic acid, by losing 1 carbon dioxide, the enzyme is pyruvate decarboxylase or pyruvic decarboxylase. Pyruvic decarboxylase. So in this presence of this enzyme, it is going to convert into acetaldehyde. Acetaldehyde. So it is going to transform into acetaldehyde. Now this acetaldehyde is going to utilize this NADH2 by using NADH2, converting them into NAD and transform into ethanol. So when they lack the oxygen, so pyruvic acid may transform into ethanol in case of yeast, bacteria. So this is called as fermentation. So in this we have two steps. One is, first pyruvic acid is converted into acetaldehyde. Then by utilizing the NADH2 which is formed in the glycolysis, then it is going to convert into ethanol. And okay, this is first. And in the case of muscle cells, so muscle cells, when we do the lots of exercise, we know that our cells undergo the anaerobic respiration and they produce the lactic acid. So if pyruvic acid is, if it is taken place in the muscle cells, it is going to produce pyruvic acid, it is going to produce lactic acid. The enzyme is lactic dehydrogenase. Here also the NADH2 is utilized and converted into NAD+. So whatever the NADH2 is formed in this glycolysis, it is going to be used or consumed in the lactic acid formation. Okay. So whether this pyruvic acid may enters into the fermentation or it enters into the formation of lactic acid formation. This is lactic acid formation. So when our cells, when we require the more energy, So at that time our cells undergo the anaerobic respiration and they get they form the lactic acid, which causes the muscle fatigue, okay, pain in the muscles. Okay, so this is what happens to the pyruvic acid. So pyruvic acid, if enters into the aerobic respiration, so then it enters into the Krebs cycle and further it produces the 36. If it enters into the aerobic respiration, it produces the 36 ATPs. 36 ATPs are produced from one glucose. One glucose produces 36 ATPs in aerobic respiration. In aerobic. But in the case of anaerobic respiration, only we get 2 ATPs. So 2 ATPs are going to be produced. 2 ATPs in anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration. So we know that the glycolysis overall we are going to get 8 ATPs, but remaining 6 from the NADH2. But in the case of when they are in the fermentation or alcohol fermentation, this is also known as alcohol fermentation. If pyruvic acid is undergoing the fermentation process, it is going to produce alcohol. This is two-stepped process. First it forms the acetaldehyde, then it forms the ethyl alcohol. In this, whatever the NADH2 is formed in the glycolysis, that is going to be utilized. So in this case there is no more NADH2. So only ATP is there. So if the total ATP is substrate level phosphorylation, in glycolysis we are going to get 4 ATPs. In that 2 ATPs are utilized for conversion of glucose into glucose fructose 6 phosphate. So remaining only net gain is 2 ATPs. So that is the reason we get only 2 ATPs in the anaerobic respiration. So here also it forms the lactic acid, pyruvic acid. When it forms the lactic acid in the presence of pyruvic dehydrogenase. In this also it is going to use the NADH2 and it forms the lactic acid. So this is about the what happens. It is anaerobic respiration in the absence of oxygen. So what happens to the pyruvic acid? It may convert it into ethanol, that is alcoholic fermentation or fermentation. So if it is in the case of muscle cells, it undergoes the lactic acid. It may produce lactic acid or alcohol. So this is about aerobic respiration, and we have to remember that net gain of ATPs in the anaerobic respiration, that is 2 ATPs only. So whatever the NADH2 formed in the glycolysis, they are going to be utilized. That is the reason we are given this step in this. Okay. Thank you.